Just on that point, it was a kind of fun debate, I guess, but it has got an extraordinary amount of traction. This idea of whether Zelensky should have worn a suit. Do you think it matters?
I think that people just don't like Zelensky. And so I think sometimes, you remember this from the schoolyard, if you don't like someone, you start to make fun of some aspect of the person, how they dress, how they look, whatever. But I don't think it's really about the suit. You know, Winston Churchill looked great in his frilly burgundy rompers, and I think Zelensky looks perfectly out of central casting in his war fatigues. I think this is more about hundreds of billions of dollars in the Ukraine war. I don't think it's so much sartorial, because if anyone walked into the Oval Office, even wearing the nicest suit he could find, it would pale in comparison to President Trump's Brioni, and I think we all know it.
It's had pretty rave reviews, actually, from, I would say, the majority of people. I'm watching it myself in real time, 90-odd minutes, the longest speech of a State of the Union kind, even though it wasn't technically called that because he's only been there a few weeks, but it was a State of the Union speech in many ways. But it was also a chance for Trump to remind people of the unbelievable number of things that he and his administration have already done in the first few weeks since he took office again, which I think, having spoken to him a number of times myself in the last 6 months, it plays into the sense that I get about Trump, that he believes he's had a second chance at life after the assassination attempt that failed, but came so close to killing him, and a second chance at the presidency, which, again, he must have had moments in the last 4 years where he may have thought that had gone. So I get a feeling of a guy in a hurry, determined now to make a legacy. And I also got a feeling at the same time of a Democrat Party in complete and utter disarray and utterly clueless as to how to deal with Donald Trump.
Without question, there's that old observation from Dr. Johnson that hanging concentrates the mind. When a man looks death, be it political death or physical death, in the face, it can focus him very much. And I think on both counts, Trump has done that. So he's moved very quickly. He promised that we would get tired of winning. I am a little bit tired. I'm not tired of the winning, but I am tired. It's an amazing flurry of things that he's accomplished in the first 6 weeks. And as you say, Piers, the speech was extraordinarily well received. CBS News, which is no fan of President Trump, had a poll out right after the speech, showed 76% of viewers approved of it. And when you drilled down into specifics, the numbers only got better from there. The key to the speech was that President Trump was having a good time and the Democrats didn't know how to react to that. And then he had that one little trap for them. He said, I've come up here 5 times and these people won't applaud anything. I could cure the worst disease. I could accomplish the greatest feat. These people will not applaud for me. And he made the Democrats look ridiculous because they had their noisemakers and their signs. And he dared them. He said, I dare you to stand up. They wouldn't do it. They're so intransigent. And so at one moment, as we know, is probably the moment that stole the show, Trump had a 13-year-old boy who's fought cancer for 6-7 years, made him an honorary Secret Service agent. If there's one thing in the country that everyone should agree on, it's that that's a really sweet moment. And these Democrats couldn't be bothered to stand up. Many of them couldn't be bothered to clap. They looked awful. I think it was a nasty thing for the Democrats to do, but they just looked so awful. No wonder
Piers,
Trump is getting great marks in the polls.
Michael, to me, staggering that there were some Democrats there sitting down and not applauding that family. Whatever your politics, that's about a family of a woman whose life was desecrated in the most appalling manner. The least you can do is show the family some respect. Put aside partisan politics. The second thing was the Democrats holding all these signs, which I just thought, we've got pictures of it here, I just thought it was so childish. It was so like sixth form common room stuff. You know, their little signs, false, 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 etc. I just thought that was embarrassing. And again, it comes back to my original thing, which is the Democrats just do not know how to tackle Trump, particularly Trump Mark II.
Yes, I was waiting for the signs to read, I am rubber and you are glue or something like that. It was totally pathetic. To your point on Lake and Riley and the other victims of illegal aliens who have come into this country, one distinction between the Trump administration, first one, and the Biden administration is, of course, crime is always going to happen. It's a fallen world. But President Trump was able to bring illegal border crossings down to the lowest levels that we've had in 25 years. Just 6 months ago, we were told by Joe Biden that he couldn't close the border because he needed some new bill from Congress to give people amnesty. And it turns out that wasn't true. President Trump in 6 weeks was able to bring illegal crossings down to the lowest number in a quarter century. century, and he didn't need any new law to do it, which means what we all have known for a long time. The Democrats encouraged illegal aliens by the millions to come into this country, up to 11,000 people in a single day. And they didn't deport criminal aliens. And some of those criminal aliens, even the ones who had been arrested for prior offenses, went on to attempt to rape and kill American citizens. So that's the difference. Are you actually going to try to do something about the problem? So I agree with you, Piers. I think that what the Democrats did last night with DJ, the 13-year-old cancer survivor, with the family of Lake and Raleigh, I think what they did was terribly immoral. But I think it was also just basic political malpractice. How on earth are you going to disrespect a childhood cancer survivor? And by the way, they're the ones who made this political, because not only did they disrespect that young man in the room, but then afterward they went on television, and Nicole Wallace on MSNBC said, oh, it was a heartwarming moment.
I'm going to play that
and
clip.
I just hope he doesn't kill himself.
I believe the point that she was trying to make is you have these Capitol police officers. Several of them have lost their lives, were beaten with their own batons. Some of them have traumatic brain injury. But yet, why didn't Donald Trump invite any of those people? I'm just wondering. So you can't have it both ways here. While I don't like the comment that was made, I also don't like the fact that MAGA Republicans seem to back the blue only when it's convenient for them. I want to say one other thing really quickly about Michael.
One person was killed in political violence on January 6th, and it was a Trump supporter who was killed by a trigger-happy cop.
Okay,
so
I want to respond to that right now, and that nonsense that you just said.
Brian Sicknick couldn't be reached for comment, could he, Michael?
Brian Sicknick, hold on a second. Brian Sicknick died the next day. And for you to claim, hold on a second. Give me 30 seconds to make my point. Excuse me.
It's in the autopsy.
Give me 30 seconds. Can I finish my point, please, to what you just said? And all I'll need is 30 seconds to do so. If you are making the case on this national show that Brian Sicknick's death the next day had nothing to do with January 6th, then you are an
I'm not
imbecile,
making that
sir,
point.
with
the
all due
medical
respect.
examiner made that point.
Just look at what the scientists
What a hill to die on.
Ridiculous.
Great job, Michael.
Let me bring in
I'm reciting what the medical
Let
me bring in Matt
your
here.
false accusation.
All right,
Okay, so
let me bring in. I'm glad. Let me just say.
Shame on you.
I'm glad, Jojo, you now find things disgusting. It's interesting what you find disgusting and what you're not prepared to find disgusting.
The death of a police officer, Piers? We're talking about the death of a police officer. You're talking about the actual death of a police officer, Piers. I know you know that those pardons were wrong. I know you know that because you've said it. And I know that you stand with those officers. So I cannot believe that you would defend Michael Knowles dragging that man's life.
If you're asking me,
reading the news report,
if you're asking me for my opinion, if you want my opinion about January 6th, I thought what happened was a complete disgrace. It shamed America. It should never have happened. I also felt that a lot of the people were given far too lengthy prison sentences. And I also felt that by comparison to what happened to the people who caused a lot of damage to property and who attacked police officers during the Black Lives Matter riots, there was a very good, strong argument that there was a double standard and hypocrisy about the way that the left and the right treated these things when it came to their own side. So that's my view. Now, forgive me, Brian, but the utter, brazen, laughable double standard of wearing pink to support
I'm going to give you a double standard.
Hang on. Let me finish. To protest at Trump policies negatively impacting women, when they all think it's fine for trans athletes to destroy the integrity of women's sport. Explain that to me.
Sure. You talk about protecting women and the gall of them to be wearing these outfits, when in half the states in this country, a woman cannot get an abortion and in some instances has to drive to another state. Geography should have no bearing over a woman's body. So if the Republicans on this panel care about women and care about women's safety, then let's talk about the fact that in some of these states, if a woman is raped or the victim of incest, she has to be forced to have that rape baby. What I want is consistency, Piers. I answered your question. I played 2 sports in college. Yes, I agree. If you're born a man, transition to a woman, I don't believe you should be competing with women. I've been very consistent on that. However, don't tell women what to do with their bodies. Don't tell women that it's okay, you should just drive to another state. If this is about protecting women, then you guys on this panel should be with me across the board and try to be consistent for once in your life when it comes to
and not to mention, Brian,
Jojo,
Brian's excellent point. As the woman on this panel, on this panel, I'm the woman on this panel.
As a woman on the panel, you just chose not to answer
respond to the question.
No, you choose not to answer my question. Brian answered my question. Therefore, he has my respect.
This is
all right,
what
I'm going to go to Michael now.
You're talking about an adjudicated rapist who brags about
if we're talking
women by the
about
pussy.
not telling women what to do with their bodies, then I would encourage you, Brian, not to tell the roughly half of women in America not to go take their bodies and drive to the polling place and vote for pro-life candidates, which is what happens. I want to clarify here. You're saying that the women on the Democrat side wore pink jackets. I'll try to clear it up for you. About half of women are pro-life.
It wasn't well said
put
at
it in
all.
blunter terms so that you can understand it. But if you want to tell them what to think and what to do with their bodies, I suppose that's your prerogative.
I very much understand it, Michael.
Hold on one second. I have a question for you.
No one told them what to do or what to think. No one did that.
My question is, you're saying that the pink jackets represent the attack on women's rights, but that the only two issues we're talking about here are abortion. I'm sorry. I thought that was your implication, that there was an attack on women's rights.
No, I mean, maybe I need to clear things up for you, Michael, because don't put words in my mouth.
Why were they wearing pink? Why were they wearing pink?
Go really slow, Brian. Go really slow for him.
Okay, I'll be very clear to you, Michael, and I'll repeat what I just said, and maybe you can get the MAGA wax out of your ears, okay? I'll explain it to you, okay? There are a lot of women in this country that I speak to, apparently you don't, that believe Donald Trump is a threat to their rights. Now, a lot of different rights.
Which rights?
Abortion is one of them, Michael. So, Michael, hang on.
Okay, that's what I said.
There are women in this country. Michael, I'm trying to clear it up for you.
Something called the SAVE Act, Michael.
I need another 20 seconds.
Including your pro-life women.
Okay.
Michael,
so far you've agreed
Michael,
with
hang
me.
on. Michael, I'm trying to clear it up for you, as you just said, okay?
Thank
you.
I
understand you're obsessed with this transgender issue, but even though it probably doesn't affect you in any way, shape, or form.
Okay, I'm glad you've clarified.
He's trying to answer you.
But no, you were not. You were not totally right. You're totally wrong.
Right. So I just
you're not letting me even answer your question. You keep interrupting me.
No one can hear. If you talk over each other, nobody hears any of you. So
let me finish, Michael.
Brian, finish your point. Then Michael, you respond.
The point I was trying to make is that if the idea with transgenders and women's sports is about women's safety, which I do tend to agree with, then you should also agree with the fact that women in this country, some of whom are raped or victims of incest, are forced to have that baby. If you care about women's rights and women's safety, then let's do it across the board, Michael. Did I clear that up for you, Michael?
All right, Michael.
You cleared up that what I said was right. So I guess my question then is, if the pink represents the Democrats' advocacy of abortion and transgenderism in children, then what you're saying is that women's rights to Democrats are the right to kill their own children and to castrate the ones who survive.
Here
is
we
that
go.
right? Do I have that right?
To kill their own children.
That's don't even answer that.
That's what abortion is.
No, hold on. I'll answer it. That's your definition
it wasn't a question,
of what a legal abortion
you can answer
is.
If you like.
Okay?
But you'll let those kids grow up and get killed in a school shooting, right, Michael? That's how pro-life
Say it again. Sorry.
Hang on. Before I go to Matt, before I go to Matt, I'm going to ask Jojo.
Starving children.
Jojo, I'm going to ask you a question, a simple question.
What are you talking
Give
about?
me a simple answer, Jojo. I want to read, Michael, that in his letter to President Trump, Ben Shapiro wrote, the massive overt pressure on the jury to return a guilty verdict, regardless of the evidence or any semblance of impartial deliberation. He said, noting that even elected lawmakers prejudged the outcome of the trial and took to national media to create pressure on the jury to go along with their preferred narrative. So, Ben, they're arguing that if it hadn't been for the global outcry over the video clip, which we all saw, which, by the way, I thought was shocking and outrageous, and I personally don't agree with Ben that Chauvin should get a pardon. But it's an interesting argument that he's making here. What do you think of it?
Well, it pains me to say anything nice about my friend Ben Shapiro, but I do think that he is totally spot on here. One also has to remember that there are state charges and federal charges here. The federal charge is just a civil rights charge. And I don't think there's any evidence that Derek Chauvin violated George Floyd's civil rights. I mean, to the point that Brian just made, he brought up the medical examiner's report, the autopsies. I guess the question, I think we're aware, my dear, the question is, how much fentanyl was in George Floyd's system? Since you read the report, how much fentanyl was in the system?
So let me ask you.
Hold on, it's just a simple question.
Let me ask you a question.
Do you have the answer to the question?
Okay.
Was it significantly higher than the legal limit?
I understand that there was fentanyl in the system, but that wasn't the cause of death, Michael.
Was it like
that wasn't the cause of death?
Legal limit? Or the lethal limit?
What was the cause of death, Michael? Irrelevant. Irrelevant. What was the cause of death, Michael? Answer my question.
Well, so are you going to charge fentanyl and murder
the
then?
real answer is fentanyl.
Answer the question.
I guess another...
so the coroner
the real answer
with deep state, right?
I just answered it 3 times.
The coroner with deep state, right, Michael?
Michael, in both of the autopsies, what did... What was the cause of death in both of the autopsies?
George Floyd died of fentanyl, and most of us know it. George Floyd also said he couldn't breathe long before the officer's knee was on his back.
Your guest is spreading misinformation.
He's not dealing in reality.
To Piers's point,
let me ask the one person who, by the way,
Michael
Matt,
just says whatever he wants.
Can I just thank Matt for just very quietly and calmly waiting his turn to speak.